Yeah, it's recording. So, I am here on Father's Day with my father, Dave.
Dave?
We're going to be we're outside chatting. I'm trying out a new setup, and we're going to be talking about a movie that we both very much enjoyed, The Godfather.
Yes.
So?
Yep, favorite of mine.
Yep.
Both 1 and 2.
3, a little bit less so. I still haven't seen 3.
I've only seen once, so I don't really know
You do
yet.
the math, yeah.
But for my birthday, you had gotten me the trilogy, so I've got all 3. So we'll get into that again. What was it? What was the format you had? That you gave me?
Blu-ray.
Blu-ray.
Yeah. It was on Blu-ray. It was Blu-ray, and I had to buy you a Blu-ray player because I bought you the disc set, and I'm like, I don't think they have a Blu-ray player.
Yeah, that's right. So when it comes to technology, you can already tell I'm an old-timer.
Yep. But you still had the forethought to make sure that you had the Red Sox hat on to give your team the representation that they needed.
They're doing well so far. Even if they're not, I'd still wear the hat. So.
I mean, most of Boston did for, 80 years?
That's right, 86.
86 years? But yeah, so Godfather. When was the movie made? It was
1972.
72.
So in case you forget that, you'll have to watch Field of Dreams. There's a reference.
A reference to the Godfather in that movie.
Reference in that when he goes back. Now, since we're talking about all movies, maybe
why not?
I'll slip in a little
another classic reference.
Field of Dreams when he's looking for one of the players there. I forget his name now. Graham. Doc Graham. And they suddenly go back in time to 1972. And the marquee on the theater says this year's best.
Oh, and it's The Godfather.
And it's The Godfather. So it was 1972. So in case you ever forget that it's 1972, you have to watch Field of Dreams. So that's an oddity. Anyway, that's off. We're going off here. So.
Yeah.
I went off.
So it's a classic movie, so it might be kind of redundant to go over the whole plot. But one of the things I was thinking about when I thought of this idea of just chatting about it was specifically Michael Corleone.
Yeah.
Or Corleone.
Yeah.
Kind of his transformation in the movie, because in the beginning he's the straight-laced one. He's the war hero.
Yeah.
And he's not ashamed, but hesitant to talk about his family.
Yeah. Well, he talks about it at the wedding with his new girlfriend.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not ashamed. You're right. He's not ashamed of his family, but he really doesn't want any part of that life at the beginning.
Yeah. Because he says to her in that first scene, when he's talking about the offer he can't refuse, right? And he said, "Oh, how does your family know? What's the guy's name? The famous singer."
Well, Johnny, I forget his Johnny Fontaine.
Johnny Fontaine, yeah.
Is it Johnny?
And he's like, Johnny Fontaine, he wanted to get out of his record deal, and the guy wouldn't let him out, and so my father went and offered $10,000
with Luca Brasi.
And then he said no, and he went back with Luca Brasi.
Yeah.
And he within an hour he signed the contract for $1,000.
Either your signature or your blood will be on or your brain or blood.
Yeah,
or whatever,
something like that.
Yeah, would be on the contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And then he looks at her, and this is what made me think that is what he looks at her in that scene, and he's like, my family's not me.
Right. But the whole thing about that is the family, and he finally transforms into he's getting ready to go into the business after they gun down his father.
Yeah.
Then he's ready.
Once
that happens, once you mess with family,
once they cross that line, he goes from being that straight-laced, the good boy of the family.
Yeah. Well, not even the cops or the other families will mess with him, because as they say in one of the lines, Clemenza says it is, don't worry, they won't mess with him. They know he's a civilian.
Yeah.
So, but he transforms. You're right. He does transform as it goes on, and it comes to a head when they gun down his father. So.
Yeah, and you really do see it in the second movie, because in the first one you see that transformation, right, of him, and in the second movie he really has become his father.
Oh yeah.
In a way that the other sons didn't. Like,
Right.
what's his older brother?
Fredo.
No, not Fredo. Fredo's kind of a bit of a screw up, but
Well, Fredo's both of them are their older brothers. Yeah, Fredo and Sonny. Santino.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the older brother who was kind of like a little bit of a showboat, a little bit of a playboy.
Santino.
Sonny. Yeah, Sonny's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
The one that
he's hot-headed.
Exactly.
Well, and see, and they have two lines, and I love these two lines. The lines about never let anyone outside the family know what you're thinking, and I think that's true with every family. You never want to let we can discuss things here, and we can but you don't want to let you don't want to let people in too much, and that was the thing with. When they had that meeting with Sollozzo and Vito, Don Corleone did not want to get into his business because it was drugs.
Yeah.
And back at that time, things about prostitution or liquor, all those things back in the 40s where they weren't looked on the same way, but drugs were new, and he did not want to get into drugs.
No.
And Sonny had a line, and there was saying, kind of hot-headedly said something to Sollozzo, and he kind of put him in check. And then afterwards, he said to him, he said, Santino, what's your brain's going soft? He said, well, don't ever let anyone outside the family know what you're thinking. And I think that I love that line, and that line comes through later when. Michael goes out to Vegas to meet with Mo Green, and Fredo comes in and starts taking Mo Green's side because what do you mean you're going to buy me out? You don't buy me out, I buy you out. And remember that line?
I do. Yeah.
And when he left, Michael said to Fredo, never let you're my brother and I love you, but never let anyone outside the family know what you're thinking. And I love that. It was the beginning of the movie, and it was towards the end of the movie.
And that same sort of sentiment is echoed in the second movie when like he knows that Fredo betrayed him, right? In that second, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen the movie. It's a classic movie. Go out and see it. But in the second movie, he finds out Fredo betrayed him in the Cuba deal, right?
Yep.
And
it wasn't the Cuba deal. He betrayed him in that he.
He had him like the information got out that he
gave him some information. He didn't know that they were going to try to
kill him, but he leaked the info.
Right.
And
he didn't know that that's what that info was for.
So. And it was the night of the Cuban Revolution, and they're trying to get away, and
right at the stroke of midnight, he gives him a kiss.
Yeah, exactly. And then when they're trying to escape, Fredo's running away, and Michael's like screaming after him. He's like, "Fredo, you're my brother. I'm not going to hurt you. Come with me. We got to get out of here."
Yeah.
And it's in a different context, I would have thought like, "Oh no, he's going to kill him." But in that context, because of how much they built up like family throughout this thing, I'm like, he's probably going to ostracize him, maybe, or something. But I really believed that he wasn't going to kill Fredo. I don't know what you think about that. Like,
I was disappointed at the end that he did kill him.
Well, I think that's one of the.
But it did seem like
in that moment.
I don't know what to think about that, to be honest with you.
There was
because he did it. Family was strong at that point.
It was.
Yeah, even though I think he knew his brother was played.
Yeah,
he didn't intentionally.
At that point, he would have been able to forgive him.
I think so. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of.
But that goes along when you were saying Michael at the end, especially Godfather 2, you could see how he's becoming his father, and that's the early sign of it in Godfather 1, in the early part when
he says
when Don Corleone says,
"Don't tell anyone outside."
Santino, your brain going soft. Don't let anyone outside. And then later in the movie, Michael is out in Vegas and says to his older brother, Fredo, you're my brother and I love you, but don't let anyone outside
so the family know what you're thinking. You got to keep that.
Or don't take sides against the family. It's the same line. Don't take sides, or don't let. It's the same type of line. So he had become his father. By that time, when they were out in Vegas, I believe his father was already dead.
I think they were at that point in the movie. Though. I'm pretty sure at that point in the movie he was.
I'm not sure, or either that, or he was at least out of the the business. He may not have been dead yet, but he was at least out of control. He wasn't in control anymore.
Yeah, he wasn't like the kingpin that he was before, like the shooting.
I've only seen it about 15 times, but they probably haven't watched it in 3 years. So I got to go back. Some of the details I got to go back and iron out again. So.
Oh, you know what? It'd be great if you had it on a disc that you could watch.
Oh, sure, with Blu-ray.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh man, but there's a lot of I don't know. It's just it has a very old world feel to it.
Yep.
Like they're very expressive.
Right. And also in that scene, there's I don't mean to. I'm getting a little bit away from what you.
No, go for it.
Because I agree with you about all of that, the touchy feely kind of stuff, but or the physical contact. But that scene, that whole office scene with Sollozzo ends with, I think, a subtly funny conclusion to what had happened out in California. You know, when they cut the head of the horse off, the guy wakes up with it's like, oh geez, I wonder how that turned out. Well, subtly, the flowers arrive and thank you for the new part, because obviously the horse's head in the bed worked because
he got
Johnny got the part. They don't actually say he got the part, but the fact that he was delivering flowers to say thank you for your.
For your patronage.
For your Johnny's saying. Actually, he does say that. Johnny's thanking him for that new part in the movie. So they tie it all up in that scene.
That actually reminds me. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. When the what's his name? Is it Tom? Tom
Hagen.
Tom Hagen, yeah.
His brother.
His brother.
And he does have to explain that to his new girlfriend. Yep.
Because it's like this
like
guy,
a stray dog in the street.
There's very clear redheaded, literal.
There's also a different name. Why, Tom Hagen? Well, how is he your brother? But yes, also.
But literally a redheaded stepchild.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
But the bit where he's having dinner with the movie executive, and like the movie executive is shouting in his face, and he's just calmly sitting there, just like hands folded, just looking ahead, not really acknowledging him. And then the guy finishes his tirade about how this skinny bastard won't get the part in the movie, and then Tom
and he delivers a very subtle message there.
Yeah,
not really subtle. I mean, he subtly delivers the heavy-handed message.
Yeah,
my boss is someone who likes to get
bad news
right away.
Yep,
delivered right away. So
yeah, and so just folds his napkin, puts it down. Thank you for the dinner,
as if to say to the guy, "You're screwed now."
Yep, you chose this.
You chose. It's right. It's right. You're the one who chose this. Right. Well put. So, there's so much of that in that movie. I just, I mean, I like mafia movies in general, or the family movies in general.
There's a lot of,
but The Godfather was the beginning of it. And,
well, the other one that I really like, and we can talk about this one for a bit, is Goodfellas.
Oh,
that's another one.
Yeah.
There's. One of the things there are two actually really good like cooking scenes that I like in both of those movies. The one from The Godfather 1 is where, like the fat guy is like
Clemenza.
Yeah,
you put in your meat, you put in your sausage and your
meatballs. And he's like, hey, pay attention in case you have to cook for 30 guys.
Right. And then Sonny comes around the corner and says, quit screwing around, will you?
Like I like that scene, and then
that's when he asks him. He said, "Oh, quit screwing around." He says, "Where's Paulie?" He says, "Oh, Paulie, you won't see him no more." So.
Oh, right, that's after the cannoli and
See, now that's one of my favorite lines. Leave the gun, grab the cannoli.
Yeah, I think so. There's actually something else I found out, and I don't know if I ever told you this. So the leave the gun, grab the cannoli bit. The grab the cannoli was improvised, right?
You told me that.
Yeah,
I never knew that. I think but right after they shoot him, it's a blood-stained scene, and he just leave the gun. Oh, grab the cannoli there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an afterthought.
And the actor apparently improv'd that scene. The other thing, apparently, in the beginning when Don Corleone is, he's petting the cat and he's talking to the people coming into his room and everything like that.
Yeah.
He's listening to the one guy who's talking about how his daughter was beaten by this guy, and he's asking for justice from Don Corleone. And
that was the Undertaker.
The cat was not meant to be in that scene. It apparently wandered on set, and the actor saw it and was just like, you know what?
Marlon Brando, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Marlon Brando was just like, hey, you know what? That actually would add to the scene. And so, like, they actually had to reshoot some of those scenes because the cat was purring so loudly in his lap it was drowning out his mic.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was also improvised.
Yeah.
And it's such an iconic thing to the point where some of the cartoons I watched when I was a kid, like one of the big villains had a big cat that he would stroke. Like one of the big gang leaders, I remember.
I didn't know that. Well, yeah, because he's a ruthless head of the family there, and yet he's petting the cat. Yeah. But of course that was the tradition, I guess, back in when your daughter gets married or any family member. I wouldn't. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly, but I guess daughter. But at your daughter's wedding, you're supposed to give out requests, and of course with the Undertaker there. It wasn't 1 for 1. He said your daughter's still alive, or even though
he's like, we can't kill him. But
yeah, we're not going to kill him. We're not. So, and then the other thing was the guy that comes in, the guy who was making the cake, the baker.
Yeah.
Enzo, and yeah, so. And that's why when he was in the hospital, the guy that comes walking down the hall, he thought it was a hitman, and it was the guy walking down.
It was Enzo.
He says,
Enzo.
I am Enzo, the baker.
Like,
I am here. I will help for your father.
Yeah.
And so he does. He walks outside and he does exactly what he says. He
puts his hand in his coat.
Puts his hand like he's got a gun, and they and then he's all nervous and everything. That's not his life.
No, he's a baker.
He was a baker. He wasn't trying to. Michael wasn't trying to get him mixed up in that. It was just he knew that
it was
just by standing there, everything would move on. The car would move on, and so and he didn't really. And so, but the guy was very nervous. He couldn't light a cigarette. His hands were shaking. So, anyway, that was a good scene too. Yeah. I mean, there was just so many good scenes in there.
There really are. So the other thing, the bit you're talking about his daughter's wedding, there's a line from Tom Hagen. And when they're asking about like why so many people are meeting his father, he's like, no Sicilian can refuse a request on his daughter's wedding day.
On his daughter's wedding day. So it is daughter. It's not just child. It's to your daughter's
specifically
wedding.
The daughter.
Well, that was Luca Brasi in that. When he comes in, he says, I hope they have a child, and your first grandchild is a masculine child.
Yep.
Well, what if it's a girl?
She'll have a mustache.
She'll have a mustache. So. Yeah. And Paulie's sitting out there because they give him all, and they have the bag with all the gifts in it and everything, and Paulie's looking at it and said, like he thinks, boy, if I could just steal this. Or I forget the exact line, but he's sitting there, but he knows that all that money's there, but who's going to rip off that wedding?
Well, exactly. Well, that was so another little fun fact that I found out when I was because when you look up these movies online, you find like a bunch of little trivia things about that. That's how I found out about the fact that was improvised. The whole cannoli line.
Yeah, see, you're the one. I love that. I love that scene. And you're the one who told me that was improvised. I never knew that, but that's still it was a great scene. And I don't mean to interrupt here, but I've told you I've seen a different version of that. They're driving around town, and who's in the back seat? It's like Rocco. Yeah. I think it's Rocco. Is sitting in the back seat. He's the one who eventually pops Paulie. But they're driving around town and they're looking for a place like to hide out or something in the west
side.
Well, I don't know.
They're scouting.
They're scouting out locations and they're driving around and one of the longer versions I've seen is they play that out longer because what they're trying to do is put Paulie at ease. Because at the end of it, obviously, when he pulls over in the weeds and takes a leak, he gets popped.
Yeah.
And but I've seen the version where they actually show Paulie and Rocco sitting in the alley waiting as Fat Clemens is in the restaurant having breakfast or lunch or whatever he's eating. And so, but a lot of the versions I've seen that are on TV or on where it would be HBO or Showtime, whatever it's on, where I watch it again is, which is why I'm interested in seeing this trilogy. By the way, was
because they'll have like the
maybe they will have the real scene, but anyway, it's drawn out more because the old versions are shortened where they just show him going around town and he says, we have an exterminator to take care of the bugs. He says, exterminator, that's a tough word, and they joke. They're having a good time. They just show him driving around. But the one that I've seen that's longer is, he's in there eating. So it's a little bit longer version of trying to make Paulie feel comfortable.
Feel at ease, yeah.
Feel at ease, yeah. So.
Oh, man. But some movies, and So before I forget though, the bit where he comes in and I hope your first grandchild is a masculine child. That apparently was the first take of that scene.
Yeah.
And the actor who played Luca Brasi
Yeah.
was so nervous about working with Marlon Brando. He messed up his lines. He wasn't supposed to mess up his lines when he was reading off the card.
Yeah.
But the director thought that like. Just that nervousness, like
fit in.
It
really
so
does.
So they used that scene because
Yeah.
there are later takes of that scene where he got it right and he said it perfectly. But the director was like, "No, when you screwed it up, it was so much better."
Right, because he revered
Don Corleone
so much. Yeah,
Yep.
It does play it better.
And so the other thing I was thinking when you're talking about the longer cut, like some movies suffer when you see the extended version of it because if they just go on too long.
Yeah.
But other movies like this one, like they just get better when you add that extra context. Like
there's some movies. I don't know how long this movie is. I'd say it's 2.5, 3 hours. I don't know. Could be long. But some movies that are 3 hours or 2.5 hours, seem real long. Or some movies that are an hour and a half seem real long. Some movies that are 3 hours don't seem long. This one doesn't seem long.
Yeah.
It's just so good. So.
Well, I'm thinking of another movie, Troy, that came out in 2004. Really liked that movie.
Is that with Eric Bana? Is
Yep.
that when? Yeah.
Yep.
With Brad. Who was that? Was it Brad Pitt?
Not Brad Pitt.
Who was the
another?
He played Achilles.
Yeah, the guy that played maybe that was Brad Pitt.
Was it?
I think it was Brad Pitt.
I can't remember now. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So good movie.
He killed. I forget what his character name was. I don't know that one as well. I did see it was very good though.
But the extended version is so much better. Like when you get those extended scenes, it adds so much extra context. There's more character development. You actually, like all of them are so much like it's such a better movie with the extended cut.
Yep.
And
I wouldn't
that's
mind seeing that. Yep.
Yeah.
Helen of Troy, was that what it was called?
Yep. Well, it's Helen of Troy.
Or maybe it was just the movie was called Troy, right?
The movie was called Troy. It's based on Homer's Iliad, the old
Yep.
story of the fall of Troy.
Yep.
There's a couple like really interesting.
But I can't remember the one that was killed. Eric Bana was the one who was playing the character, and I can't think of
it was
the oldest son.
I should know this
because Achilles shows up and says and shouts his name.
Yeah,
and of course he's
Hector.
Hector, right?
Hector. He just stands outside the gate and just goes Hector.
Yep. And he takes his in the scene. When he comes out. He takes his helmet off and he says, "So there's no mistake about
it's
who
like
I
so.
am."
It's like so you know who you're fighting.
So
or
you know
something
who you're
like
fighting. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That was a drastic shift in movies.
It was. But that your point about adding the extra scenes doesn't take it adds.
Some movies it really helps with.
Yeah. Some movies it drags on. Some it helps. So.
Yeah. The one movie that I think one of the very first movie nights that Blue and I did was Blues Brothers, and we watched the extended cut of it. And the movie's really good, but the extended cut they added in like 20 extra minutes of car chase and crash footage. And I was we're at the end of the movie just watching them drive around for like 15 minutes and nothing has really happened for a while. I'm like, what's going on here?
Right.
Like so, I think in that movie like it was perfect the way it was, but the extended cut kind of made it worse.
Right. Yep.
Oh man. Yep. All right, gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we're back. We have talked about Godfather 1, Godfather 2, a little bit about Goodfellas, and
not really
Troy.
Godfather 2, but.
I mean, we mentioned the whole Cuba thing and Fredo and the betrayal.
That's true. We did. Yep.
I never did say Goodfellas. The scene that I was thinking of when I was talking about the cooking was the scene where they're in prison. And it's like, in prison, dinner's a big thing.
Right.
And
for that group.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas like
not for the normal population.
One guy's working on the meat and
Oh yeah. Yep, that's right. They got everything. Everything was delivered from the outside. They got nothing but the best meats and cheeses and
the wine and the scotch and
they had the one guy with the razor and just cutting
the garlic.
Oh, the garlic, right?
The
garlic, just right, and they were shaving it.
It was with a straight razor. It was or not a straight razor, but with like a a shaving razor blade.
Yep. Yep. The Goodfellas was a good movie, and well, obviously the Godfather is where it all began. You probably never watched The Sopranos.
No, I never did, but I know you and Mom watched it quite a bit.
We watched it, yeah, from beginning to end. Now, we didn't always have those channels, so in later years we went back from beginning to end and watched the whole thing, including the seasons that we had missed. But yeah, I was a big fan of that too. So, but that was great because it was like, everyday life, having to deal with like PTA and kids school and stuff like that, and then whacking the guy next door, whatever. Your normal life. Type of thing. So.
Well, actually, speaking of these kind of movies, we talked about like how they take out is it Paulie who they shoot in the back of the head with the cannoli scene? And
Paulie, right, the driver.
Yeah. So there's a scene in that kind of makes me think of that in Goodfellas when they whack. It's the guy that's played by, I cannot remember his name, Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Who's the guy that Joe Pesci plays in Goodfellas? You remember
Tommy.
So when they think they're gonna make him, and then they bring him to an empty room, and he
knows right away. He says, "Oh no."
He says, "Oh no," and then they shoot him in the back of the head.
Right. And they said, and he was narrating at that point, saying, they're not, like, it was because of what was it Billy Batts?
Yeah.
I forget the one that they had whacked earlier because he was a made man. So, and it was a lot of like in that life, they're not 100% sure maybe that he did it, but it doesn't matter if you just think. Then, and did you ever see Casino?
I didn't. I've heard.
Well, I won't go into the whole thing, but there was a scene where they were trying to tie up all the loose ends, and it was like the old guard. A lot of these guys had been around forever, and a lot of them were sitting around with the ventilator and the breathing machines and everything else, but they were still in charge. Yeah. And so they were all talking. They went around the room. They were talking about the lawyer, and they said, "Well, what about?" And I forget what his character name was. I didn't see that movie all the time as often, but. And they were talking about what they were going to do with certain people, and they said, "Oh, he's a good kid. Oh no, he's fine. He's and they go around the room to get to the last guy, and he says, yeah. He says, but can we be sure? In the next scene, he's in the parking lot,
and they shoot him,
and they're whacking him.
Yep.
It's like that. He knows too much. In other words, he probably won't say anything, but there's a possibility.
There's a tiny chance, and
so that's what happens in that life, and so it's the same. It's those are the scenes. Those are the decisions made. Yeah. It's like we don't really know, but we're just gonna take care of it.
We got to be sure. The
only way to be sure is. If they're not made, and that's why Tommy was whacked because it was suspicious of that he whacked a made man.
And the guy, I remember that scene because that scene is like really intense too because Tommy's like he's pissing him off and he's like, why do you got to be over here breaking my balls? And the guy's like, oh, if I really wanted to break your balls, I'll tell you to go get your fucking shine box. And then a few seconds later, he takes a drink and then goes, now go get your fucking shine box.
Right.
And that's when then Tommy goes, he's like, you son of a bitch, and they have to hold him back and everything.
Yeah. Well, and they have him in the trunk of the car.
Yeah.
And that's how the movie kind of starts. But then they go back to the movie and then. But when
it builds up to that point.
Well, they're having dinner at his mother's house.
Yeah.
And they're looking at the painting, and they said, doesn't he look like someone? And they all start laughing. And the mother doesn't know. But after they whacked him, of course, they're narrating the scene. They said it was all based on the Billy Batts thing, payback for Billy Batts.
Yeah.
And they said they even shot him in the face, so his mother had to have a closed casket
funeral. Yeah.
So... Yeah, it's just a vicious life. But
well, that's speaking of the vicious life. To bring it back, because you're right, we didn't talk too much about Godfather 2, but in Godfather 2, like the ending is kind of like that because it ends with Michael just kind of alone on a lawn chair in an empty house,
right after he had Fredo whacked.
Yeah, and he's just sitting there and he's got this serious face on and. This is what he has.
Yep.
Like he's got his empire. He's got his business, but
everyone's gone.
Everyone's gone.
Yep. Yep. Because he's thinking back to the scenes at the dinner table when who was his Carlo.
Carlo,
When Carlo was being introduced to his it's actually, I didn't know this, but it was actually until that scene. But Carlo's the one, Sonny's the one who introduced Carlo to his sister. So that's what happened, and that's how they ended up whacking Sonny's because
he goes into a rage because Carlo was beating his sister, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. And earlier in the movie, he had. It's one of the all-time gaffes, when they talk about movies and once again, it wasn't enough to take anything away from The Godfather. But you ever see that scene where he's beating up Carlo in the street?
Yeah.
You see him punching him.
Yeah.
And you like a lot of times. You can't tell whether he's hitting him or not. But if you ever watch that, especially now with the DVR, you ever watch that when he punches?
It's clearly a fake.
He's clearly missed him by 2 feet.
And then he just
maybe not 2 feet.
And then it's
Yeah. So once again, it's not enough to take away from the movie. The movie is an all-time classic. But I always found that funny. Like he's before he kills him. This is later in the movie.
Yeah.
He warns him by beating the crap out of him on the street.
Yeah.
And they knock him, and he ends up in the gutter with the fire hydrant, spewing the water on him. So, and he's sitting there like Carlo's sitting there holding on to the. It's Sonny reaches down and bites his fingers.
Oof.
Yeah. So.
There actually, speaking of some of the things that Sonny did in that movie, the early scene when they're at the wedding.
Yeah.
And he.
He's upstairs with one of the bridesmaids.
There's that one too. That's another. I love how Tom knocks on the door, and he hears it from the other side, and he just laughs.
He just laughs like his wife's right outside.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I'm thinking of the scene where like the FBI people are out in the car park and they're taking pictures and everything and writing stuff down, and he walks in and he smashes the guy's camera and then throws like $2 at him.
Well, it was probably more than $2.
It was probably more than $2, but that apparently was entirely improvised. Like the guy, the reporter who like looks like wicked shocked when he broke the camera.
Yeah,
that was genuine shock because the actor decided to improvise smashing the camera and throwing the money out.
Oh wow!
And when asked about it later, apparently this is more trivia that I found looking up the movie. But like, when asked about it later,
all this the trivia site, I'd like to find out more.
There's a lot of cool stuff. But so when asked about why he threw them, like why he did that or why he thought it was a good scene, the actor was like, "Well, my grandmother said, you break something, you pay for it." And so that was the reason that he thought to throw the money.
So
out.
The camera breaking was
the camera breaking.
Oh,
both.
Both.
The money and the camera were both ad-libbed.
Yeah. Well, I like the fact how he all of a sudden changed gears. Like first he wanted to kick the crap out of the guy. He broke his. First of all, he roughhoused him. Then he broke his camera, and then calmed right down and threw him a couple of whatever they were.
Yeah, 20s or whatever.
Who knows what the rate was back in the 40s?
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, it's just so many. That's the thing, like. Without talking about like the whole plot of the movie, just every time we think of something, we're picking out another scene. Like, oh, that was such a good scene. Oh, that was such a good scene. Like, the whole movie is just a collection of just really good scenes.
Right. Well, I had a conversation with people at work one time. They were all talking about their favorite lines of the movie, and of course, grab the cannoli, leave the gun. It was or leave the gun, grab the cannoli was one of my favorites. But the other one was Sonny when he was talking about trying to set a meeting. Slotzer wanted to set a meeting, and so he said, "Sonny, so what did he say?" He said, "What do you mean? What did he say?" Bada beep, bada boop, bada bop, bada beep. So I mean, that you don't need an Italian translation for that. It's just he didn't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. He said something. It's not worth remembering.
It's not important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of a funny line too, but yeah.
And that's the same scene where they get the fish in the newspaper, and it's like Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
Yeah,
that was a brutal scene.
And that was really a brutal scene. I agree.
Yeah,
where
they garrote Luca Brasi.
Yeah. Luca was supposed to be there on Don Corleone's behalf. He was there on Don Corleone's behalf, and they thought they were fooling him, but they knifed. They put the knife through his hand to hold him, and then they strangled him. They were looking at. Yeah, that was definitely a brutal scene. Yep. So
And all right, so that's our conversation. That's our nice recap of several movies. In fact,
mainly The Godfather, but yep.
Yeah. hopefully you guys enjoyed watching and or listening. I'm going to put this up in an audio format too, and if you want to see more kind of long form discussions like this, let me know.